Hello, everybody. My guest today is David Barrett. He started programming at the early age of 6 and has been aspiring to become an expense report magnate ever since. I don't know if I believe him, by the way, on that. We'll check that in a second. He attended the University of Michigan, where he worked in the virtual reality lab before moving to Texas to write 3D graphics engines for the video game industry. Next, he moved to California to join Travis in building a peer-to-peer file transfer technology called Red Swoosh. That's obviously Travis from Uber. And that company was acquired by Akamai in 2007. In 2008, he left that company to start Expensify and has since been relieving the world's frustrations, one expense report at a time. David, are you ready to take us to the top?
I'm ready.
So you popped out of the womb and you said, give me the P&L, Mom. Let me see the balance sheet. Let's do expense reporting, baby.
That's right. I just got into it for the chicks, It's obviously where it's at.
Tell us about the company. What do you do and how do you make money?
So Expensify is pretty straightforward. It's a mobile app for business travelers. You take a picture of your receipts. We read all the information off the receipt automatically, so there's no typing involved. And then we'll submit it to your company for reimbursement. And so we'll get you paid the very next day for the Starbucks purchase you made today.
Okay, that makes good sense. And tell us the origin story here. When did you launch the company and what turned you on to it?
Well, origin stories are always complicated. And I would say, to summarize mine, initially I had no interest in expense reports whatsoever. I was doing something just completely different in the prepaid debit card space. And the banks just had no interest in me. They saw me as just way too risky. And so I'm like, all right, I need something low risk. I need something boring. I'm like, what is the most boring thing I can think of? I'm like, expense reports. So that's how I got into it. It was as a Trojan horse to get permission from the banks to launch an entirely different product. And then after we launched this product, everyone's like, yeah, your prepaid debit cards are cool and all, but your expense reports are amazing. And up until that point, I actually hadn't intended to build it. It was a fake product that I was just making up as I went along. And I think I developed a story around it. It's like, this mobile app where we use your camera to scan receipts and then we reimburse you the next day and we import your credit cards and export your accounting package and all this stuff. And everyone's like, if you just did that, that would be amazing. I'm like, maybe we should just do that. So that's how I got into it.
That's interesting. And the business model now, I mentioned last show that you were on. Guys, if you want to listen to the last episode David came on, it was episode 844. And actually, he was on in episode 655, which would have been about a year ago as well. David, you start even with the janitor on a free plan, and you said they go up to an average ARPU of about $9 a pop. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. Because I would say our entire business model, and I would say the way that we differentiate is by acquiring the individual first. And then so that's why the product has to be so good for the end user, is because the end user is our champion. They're the person who pulls us into the organization and then promotes us to the top of the organization.
Would you go so far as to say that your onboarding is a consumer app?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think that we're this very weird sort of middle ground between sort of this, we're basically like consumer grade enterprise application.
Yep. This is a model that you're the second one in about a week I've had on. So Malwarebytes they'll be pushing 100 million here soon in ARR, but they do the same thing. It's bottoms up. They have a consumer approach. Then they land and expand based off logos they seeing naturally coming in on their consumer product. And it works really, really well for them. You're doing the same thing, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, because if you're going to differentiate, you can't differentiate through functionality alone. It has to be through acquisition, through business model.
Yep. And how many, let's not use number of companies, although I'm sure obviously that's probably well into the thousands or tens of thousands, but employees. So how many seats are being used on Expensify today?
Honestly, I don't know that number. I would say so we think about 45,000 paying companies. So basically,
how many
companies have adopted? Yeah. So we've got more companies as Expensify than the next 4 expense reporting companies.
How many did you say, David?
About 45,000.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, you were just on 4 months ago. You were at 42,000. So yeah, you're growing quick.
Yeah, and so this year especially has been crazy. It's been actually just crazy keeping on top of it this year. Yeah. But yeah, so it's been great.
And then before we get more of the origin story and kind of where you see the space going, I want to talk about Matt and the T-Sheets deal as well, and just fintech in general, especially some data related to this space. Can we put a general bracket on your thing? So, I mean, you guys are somewhere between the, call it 60 and $100 million ARR range. Is that fair?
Yeah, we're still under 100. That's right.
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking this is just for the significance in terms of when people start thinking about IPO and other sources of capital. I mean, do you think you'll break 100 in 2018 or do you think it's more 2019?
Yeah, it's probably not 2018.
Okay, got it. Interesting. So let's talk about the space. And guys, by the way, I'm not going to focus a ton on David's backstory because you can get that in the other interviews. He, launched the thing in 2008. They were at 120 people about 3 months ago. Are you still at about that size, David?
Yeah, actually, that number is maybe a little bit off. It's more like maybe 110 right now.
110.
I think that probably gave you the bad number before.
That's okay. No worries. So let's talk about the space. So a lot of people, I mean, especially when you start hearing people go, man, I should do an Expensify concept on blockchain, right? Where's your head in terms of just fintech in general and blockchain?
Wow, that's interesting. So I guess I would say, I think right now is a really hard time to start a company, because any company that just involves like the internet and mobile and things like that, it's like, it's been done. It's been done like 10 years ago. And so I think we're seeing like this whole Series A crunch. It's because so many of the early stage funds in the past few years are doing terribly, because again, all these kind of Me Too wannabes basically have come around.
You haven't raised any more, right? You're at 25 million still?
Say one more time?
You haven't raised additional capital since we last spoke, right? You're at 25?
Oh, no. We're profitable. So we're off that whole bandwagon.
Yeah, but you only raised 25 to date, right?
I think 27, I think it is.
So do you regret it, raising?
That's tough. I mean, it's easy to say yes because I regret the dilution, but on the other hand, I spent it all. So
yeah,
I clearly needed it. And it's tough to say. Like one of the challenges is money got so cheap for a while. I wish that I had raised a few years later, but then now I realize those companies that raised a few years later, maybe they got good terms, but they're all gone. They're just done because they came too late. And so, yes, we came at a time when capital was more expensive, but it was also much earlier. And that's what enabled us to kind of take over the market. So it's hard to look back and say what you do different.
Yeah, the whole funding thing is tough. I mean, I'm looking at you here because we're doing this on a Skype interview. I mean, you look like a guy that doesn't have ego. I mean, you're showing up your natural self. I mean, your hat, has a ripping it up here. I mean, you haven't shaved in years. Your shirts, you look good, but you're like Portland and you're like, I don't give a fuck and I'm just doing my thing. So it's great. So you don't seem like a guy that would raise for ego purposes.
Oh, well, no, I think that's really kind of stupid. Like, to celebrate raising money is to celebrate that you took out a loan. It's like,
wait, so like what pushed you over the edge though when you did raise? You just saw a path to spending the capital to get number one in market share, or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, things got more refined over time, and I'd say we raised because it was possible, because everyone thought you had to. We took some big swings that missed, and so it's
Tell
hard
me about
to know.
one of those swings.
I would say like advertising. Like, advertising's tough. Everyone will tell you, it's like, oh yeah, everyone knows how this works. You raise a bunch of money, you spend it on ads, and then you get this high performance sales team, and then that's how you build your business. With the exception that no business you cared about was ever built that way. Like, every business, all the top names in the industry are built through word of mouth, but no one talks about that because it's not possible to be funded with capital, and so therefore VCs don't care about word of mouth because it's not their business model. And I think that's the big challenge being an entrepreneur, is recognizing that your job is very different than your investor's job, and your world outview is just very, very different as well.
No, that makes good sense. I mean, your whole model now, right? You're not doing any paid spend anymore, right?
No, we have no advertising going on whatsoever right now. It's all 100% word of mouth.
And it's the janitor starts using it, and then before you know it, the janitor tells Sally, who works the desk, and then John, who works the desk next to Sally, and before you know it, 20 people at a company, and then it moves from a personal credit card payment to the company buying a seat package with you guys, right?
That's exactly right. And that's our whole business model. And it sounds crazy that it could work at this scale, but like, it does. It works great.
Yep. And is it no touch, or is there a portion of your 110 folks dedicated to picking out the logos they see signing up and expanding?
It's certainly not no touch. There's no there's no commission sales component at Expensify. So no one's paid a commission at all. But we certainly have a support team that stands by, because it's activity-based pricing. That means we only get paid when you get active. But the only way that you get active is that you've gone through your whole setup process and gotten your company on board. So we have a whole team standing by that will help you get on board. And we've got different types of teams for different parts of the organization, different accounting packages and so forth. But I would say that so it's not no touch, but there's no commission sales. And the lack of commission is what distorts everything.
And is the company, so can you give us a sense also of growth? So like last year at this time, what were you at, if you're comfortable sharing? And then obviously we can back into growth rate. Sure.
So last year we were under 100%, but I would say what's been really interesting is we're going through this kind of like this second S curve. So when I say S curve, everyone thinks it's like you start slow, then you grow fast, and then you kind of like slow off into the distance sort of thing. And so
slowly die
at scale, I guess, or something like that. And but one thing we're finding is very unusual about our business model. And so in the past couple of years, we spent a lot of time making the product easier for smaller business. Like, everyone thinks about the enterprise and how great the enterprise is. Enterprise sucks, man. It's just like, it's super slow sales cycles. The margins are terrible. It's super competitive. It's whatever. The real opportunity is mid-market and below. And so we've been reorienting the company around sort of mid-market companies and SMB. And as we do that, we are actually seeing our revenue re-accelerate, which has been great. And so I think that we have this very broad range of the market, everything from like individual to Fortune 500, but like really the lower half is where the opportunity is at.
So can we say you kind of grew 90 to 100% year over, or 80 to 100% year over year between this time and last time, the same time?
I'm not going to get into those numbers in detail, but yeah, I would say like the nice thing is I think that accelerating at this scale is like turning the ship around at this scale is real hard to do.
Well, that's honestly, David, that's why I'm pushing you here on this, because I want people to understand you can still get healthy growth numbers without dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into paid ads, diluting the hell out of your company, right? Where you have to sell for $3 billion before your first employee sees a dime.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. And I would say the only reason we slowed down at all was because we got distracted by the enterprise. Like we started off kind of like lower mid-market SMB, and the enterprise was just there. It seemed good, like big names and so forth. And so we just kind of got distracted by them for a couple of years. And so now we're getting back to the basics, I would say.
Okay. Can we say it was over 50% year over year? I want to give you credit here.
Year,
okay, got it. Between 50. So guys, listen, follow his story. Check out Expensify. It's possible to grow at this scale. I mean, again, it's easy to go from $1 to $2, right? And say 100% year over year growth. When you're going from 50 million, trying to get to 100 million, it's way obviously tougher. So David's doing it, and he's doing it in an unconventional way. David, what's next? Do you mentioned you're trying to make it easier for smaller companies, which is great, because then you're kind of increasing the number of people using you. Are you ever going to go into the space where you're going to try and increase wallet share on your current customers via upselling new stuff?
That's interesting. I don't know. We've always tried to keep ourselves the least expensive option in the market. And I think that we think that the path to growth is not so much by like increasing sort of how much you extract from each customer, but just getting more customers. And so I'm much more focused on just massive scale than I am on trying to squeeze harder.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk. And the reason I bring that up is because our friend Matt, right? Matt was on the show with T-Sheets. He just sold to Intuit for $340 million on a great multiple. And, he was, I would put him in the payroll space, but it's not just like a timer. It's kind of more intricate payroll. You could very easily, there's a clear path for you from a product roadmap perspective to jump into these kinds of spaces.
Well, I would say yes, you could say that in that sense that all accounting ultimately deals with, numbers that have a dollar sign in front of them. And so they're all very similar, but there are differences there. Like T-Sheet certainly has focused on making the best time tracking sort of software. And it's not just about the numbers behind it, but like it'll take a picture when you clock in. There's like GPS tracking. There's a whole bunch of nuance around the space. And so, yes, it would be very easy for us to do shitty time tracking. It'd be very hard for us to do time tracking nearly as good as they do.
Before we wrap up, you look like you're in a very cool spot. Can you move your camera around, show us around where you are?
Sure. Yeah. This is my office here. And so.
Oh, wow.
It's actually my daughter's birthday. We rented this bus called the Tumble Bus, which is it's a whole gym that comes out, and it's just the whole thing that's going playing out there. So.
Oh my gosh! Wait, go back to your bookshelf. How do you organize? What are these books? Are these fiction, nonfiction? Typically,
these books are my wife's books. She's an opera singer, and so like everything down here is like classical music. Everything up there is more history, and so I'm more of a digital person. I'm not much of a book person.
I love that. All right, David, let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what if you have one? What's your favorite business book?
I guess I would have to say The Innovator's Dilemma.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
It'd have to be Elon Musk. Who wouldn't?
I know. That's right. Number 3, besides your own, is there a favorite online tool you have?
It's basic. I'm just going to go Google Docs.
Okay, I was about to say, you don't have to go basic. You can if you want, but Google Docs. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
8.
Okay, and what's your situation? Married or single? Or obviously, you mentioned your wife and 1 kid. Do you have any more kids?
No, just the 1. But I do have a dog, and she's certainly precocious.
And how old are you, David?
I'm 42, I think.
Okay, last question. Take us back 22 years. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I would say stop listening to VCs.
There you guys have it from David. Stop listening to VCs. Look, he launched this company many, many years ago, kind of jumped into the VC trap, raised 25 million, took some swings, missed, learned it the hard way, but really now it's beautiful what he's doing. Acquisition, basically through a consumer app, bottom up, focusing his R&D team on making the tool easier for small business owners and for the consumer themselves, because when the consumer uses it more, they tell more people, word of mouth grows, they move to a paid plan at about $8 a month. They're doing between, call it 60 and 100 million currently, growing year over year between last year and today, December 2017, between 50 and 90 or 100-ish%. Again, without spending loads of money on capital and without raising a bunch of extra capital as well. David, thank you for taking us to the top.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.